This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter.
At Pepe Sayer, we focus on quality. So if someone comes into your restaurant and they see you're using Pepe Sayer, they know immediately that that is a quality product you've got in front of you on the table. And that comes from a decade of just doing quality butter day after day.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
That's the most important thing when in cooking. Sometimes you forget about it when it's all stripped away, and it's just the creativity, I think, of putting things together, I think is super important.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. There have been many on Deep in the Weeds that have shared similar advice for young professionals. Find a great restaurant and learn from someone who is at the peak of their craft and can be a great mentor. It's easier said than done, but what impact does it have on those finding their place in the industry to learn under sound mentors? Simon Palmer is the head chef of Echo Bistro in Brisbane. Simon, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Anthony. Good to be on.
It's good to have you on the show. You've worked under some pretty incredible chefs at the moment. You're in Brisbane with Philip Johnson. What's it like working with him?
It's amazing. There was a clip that I watched, ages ago when I was first a chef, and it was Neil Perry talking about, working in the industry, and that, you just strive to work with people that you respect, is the biggest thing. Because, I think if you don't have the respect, then you just don't want to give your all. So to work with someone that you kind of respect and get along with, I think is a massive thing.
Philip's influence is huge, and I want to get into your role at Echo Bistro a little bit later on. But what's things like at the moment in Brisbane? It's been a pretty turbulent couple of years, but where are you placed?
Yeah, well, I've been away and back, and been a couple of different places, but Brisbane keeps bringing me back. I really like Brisbane. It's just the culture up there is just fun, and the food up there. There's lots of different kind of cuisines, but just the general attitude to food and restaurants. I think we've got some really good chefs up here. Their focus is A1, I think. So I think the culture is just good. I think that's a thing. We just got lots of chefs around that love to chat and support each other, which is good.
The evolution of Brisbane's culinary landscape has been quite extraordinary in the last decade. What's it been like for you being part of that, and where do you see it at the moment? Yeah,
well, I see, it's just kind of, it's always progressing. I did a couple of stages and stuff and down in Sydney, and, people were kind of kind of where's Brisbane at? Sydney was pushing on, and Brisbane was kind of, behind Sydney. But I think these days, the food's just honest, which is good. And, it's approachable, and it's quite creative as well. So I find it, there's lots of different places and different attitudes. So I think the food really kind of reflects a lot of people's talent, which is which is good, because it's small smatterings of just great food. So it's a little bit different to Sydney, but I find it just it's just accelerating in terms of different ideas and different concepts, and bringing on what people want to put on the plate up here, I think, is important, not always customer focused, which is good.
Take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family?
Yeah, well, like I come from pretty much a non-food background. My dad was a plumber, and my mum worked in real estate. But my auntie, she was a interior designer, like very artsy kind of person, and we used to often be in Sydney, and she used to take us out as kids to all different kind of cool cafes in Newtown, and just all over Sydney, and we kind of had a tradition. The Palmer family with this just kind of yum cha every Christmas, and just experiencing different food, I think was amazing. And like kind of, it's a bit kind of strange, but like half of my side of my family on my dad's side are like half Chinese, so I spent a lot of time with a lot of Chinese food, a lot of Cantonese food, and stuff like that, and just different flavors that I wasn't used to. And I was just a kid from Newcastle. I didn't really know much, but yeah, just proper home cooked Cantonese food is just it's a bit different. So it got me around some different concepts. So yeah, it was quite nice.
Are there any dishes or feasts from those days that you remember that you can tell us about?
Yeah, we used to go around to like my second uncle's place, and it would just be a massive, he had a massive like koi pond and all sorts of things, and we used to sit out in the garden and just like he'd make his own barbecue pork and like kind of noodle salads and all sorts of things. It was an amazing experience, and we'd have like second cousins, first cousins. It didn't really matter. It was just a good Christmas. So there's just kind of little experiences like that for me with food. Is just kind of rocks me to just not be too vanilla, just to just when food's good and flavor's nice, it just works. So
when did you first start thinking about a career in hospitality, and what allured you?
Well, I was kind of going through high school, and one of my best friends, we often just mucked around in the kitchen, like at home, and just tried to come up with dishes based on what was in the cupboard. It was always terrible, but I think the idea was just it was fun, we kind of both enjoyed food, and school was kind of like, we were never going to rock the world with university or anything like that. So we just kind of, knuckled down and just dominated a hospitality class, and then just kind of, just really got a taste for it. And so like kind of after that, like did a bit of work experience at school. I got a job at a Japanese restaurant as a kitchen hand. There was no dishwasher, so it was all hand washed dishes, 130 covers. So it was quite different. But working at a Japanese restaurant, I used to like prepare kind of for the tepans for the chefs, and get yelled at in Japanese, and but like the camaraderie in the kitchen was great. Like some of the it was hard, but some of the nicest people I've ever met, and showed me a lot when I was just 16. So that kind of gave me like a little bit of a spurt, but it was still kind of just a dormant thing at that stage.
You spent a lot of your early on career in Newcastle, where you grew up. Tell us about the venues that you worked at, and what you took from your time at them.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a crazy, a couple of years. In my first years of my apprenticeship, I went up to work for like a friend of my brother's who opened a pub in Maitland. So I used to travel, an hour and a half on the train every day to get to work, and I'd rock up and do 13-hour days, and then back on the train back home. That lasted about 3 months, but I found a job at a place called Engine Room in Newcastle, which was the harbour was kind of humming at that stage. It was a big development, and it was a big breakfast cafe place, and it was busy. But yeah, I kind of fell into a role that was a bit weird for someone at a first, second year stage. We lost all of our chefs, and it was just me and the head chef and a busy restaurant. So, but yeah, it's just kind of funny. Like a guy called Juan Hernandez, and he just he just had to do with what he had, and it was kind of amazing because we had just apprentices, and we seemed to get through and execute everything, and I think it built up a lot of people's experience, so it was great. But then that was kind of just like a small spot on Newcastle at that stage, and there wasn't really a lot around. There was Restaurant 2, that was kind of just starting to kick off with hats and stuff, and Newcastle was just kind of a thing that was a bit overlooked at that stage. But then I moved on to a place called Atlas, which was a little 45-seater restaurant, which ended up becoming Restaurant Mason years later, and worked for a guy called Bart, and he was Michelin background, and him and his wife had moved to Newcastle and wanted to open like a classic, little kind of French bistro. But it was amazing. Like everything was made fresh to order. None of the desserts were allowed to be made until an hour before service, and it was just a 3-man team, just me, Bart, and a guy called Stephen Scott, and yeah, we just it was just the 3 of us. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything made to order. Breakfast, fresh hash browns for breakfast, and yeah, and I loved it, and it kind of it tore me down many days. Bart often told me that I had to bring 5 uniforms to work every day because if he wasn't happy with something, you wore it. So it was time to go upstairs and get changed. So it was definitely a different experience, and every day you were broken down about how the way you looked, and but it was always like character building. And then at the end of the week, we weren't open for dinner, so we would all go out for a steak dinner, and then to Bart's local pub, and he paid for your dinner and drinks, and he told you how you did a good job this week, but even though he yelled at you all week. So, but yeah, so that was kind of, that was Newcastle at that stage. It was, just there's just rare little bits that you could get your teeth into, and then just ironically after that, after working at Engine Room, Juan Hernandez had taken over at Bacchus, and they got their first hat, and that was when Newcastle started to kick into some kind of a food scene with the destination restaurant. So yeah, working for him, and same thing. Couldn't find any chefs, and he knew me, and he knew that I was there to work, and straight on the pans at year 3, and the one hat restaurant, and often cooking things and just bringing them up and just asking him, do you think that's cooked? No, it was amazing. And he left, and then Tim Montgomery came, and kind of all changed after that for me. Someone with a laser focus that wanted to improve and wanted to build something, which was amazing. And I left for a little bit to go overseas, a kind of failed culinary venture that didn't eventuate. And my mum kind of rang Tim when I got back and said, Simon's looking for a job, can he come back? So, it was definitely an experience. But yeah, after that, I think Newcastle really took off in terms of, restaurants, I think.
We've had Tim on the show, and we've had quite a few chefs as well that have worked under him. Do you have any stories of what it was like for you and the influence that he had on you at that time in your career?
Yeah, well, I think it was like the total experience. I think he really picked people for their personalities and what they can contribute to the restaurant, I think, which was amazing. Like, people like Aaron Ward and Reese Connell and Isabel Little, like they're just people that you just wouldn't think that that had a place and had restaurants. Aaron being from Taree and moved down, but there's such dedicated people, and like as I always say, like people with focus like that achieve amazing things. And so like Tim just really kind of cultivated a crew, and we would just do anything to make it happen. There's like stories with Tim was always just lots of laughs, I think. And one time we went away for the Good Food Awards, went down to Sydney. We all celebrated getting another hat, and we celebrated hard, and we were back at work the next day. We left Sydney at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're all back in the kitchen. Tim decided that he wanted to put an Asiated rabbit on with about 46 touches on the plate. Everyone's sweating and just a little bit hungover and not feeling the best. But we pulled out a 100 people service with a couple of brand new dishes, and just from scratch, and everything was ordered the night before after the awards, and it was a bit of a mismatch, but we definitely made it happen. It was just, but we just loved it. I think it was something that I've talked to Aaron a while ago just about some of the food that we did, and like it was just unheard of. Like no one in Newcastle could pull that out. And I think the coinage was just always, there was this beautiful naturalness. So everything that just was on the plate was just, how do you play that? It's just beautiful naturalness. It's just, that's how it is. Just if you think it's how it works and that's how it does. And I think that's a good mentor, where they can just put the ownership onto somebody to achieve something. And just because people can do things that you just didn't realize that were possible. So
what triggered the move for you up to Brisbane?
Well, it was that stage. I worked pretty much everywhere what I thought was good. I had a small shot at being a head chef of a little wine bar in Newcastle, and tried to put on some of the food that we did at Bacchus, and Tim would come in and I'd be trying to impress him with some stuff that we did in the restaurant, and working a million hours, and just for a small wine bar, and didn't really know anything about food costs or how to run a kitchen, but just thought it was a good idea. And that kind of finished up with my wife was she was desperate to find some work, and we need to move to an area where she could get a job, and Brisbane was that place. And we just thought, let's just try something. And I got an interview at Urbane. Ben Williamson and Kim Machin were the head chefs at the time, and I moved up there thinking that's who I was working for. And when I got up there, it turned out to be Alessandro took over, and a guy called Peter Kelly, who I actually lived with for 2 weeks to try and move up there because he was that desperate to get somebody. It was just kind of it was just a chance to improve myself, I think, and find, see if I can do what I think I can do.
You mentioned Ben Williamson, and you ended up working with him at Gerard's Bistro. What was he like to work with? Well, like as I always said, he's an uncompromising person, and I think that's so important in the job, because you can definitely sometimes just put yourself in a hole because you've got to compromise on what you got in front of you and what it is. But we had at one stage we had 46 dishes on the menu. We're doing 130 covers a night. We're restaurant of the year, and we've got 5 staff. But
but that just kind of bred some really good chefs, like, you know, Tim Scott and Angus Baker. Like, you know, we just tried to make it possible for Ben. That was our thing, you know, when we worked as hard as we could to, you know, we had whole beasts, we had whole pigs, we had, you know, rocking up 10 minutes before service and 110 for lunch. So, but yeah, when you got a good call like that and some good people, yeah, just, yeah, I think it was good because, yeah, we just knew that everything that we were doing was for the best, and putting the best thing on the plate and just having a good time. And it was just nice and refreshing to see somebody just push the envelope rather than just trying to just get through. So yeah, like I always say, my time at Gerard's was difficult and hard, but definitely built me to be the chef that I am now, and just to look at other people and tell them that it's not impossible. It's just you just got to get in there and do it.
I know there was a time frame where you were at Echo Bistro and then left to do some things, and now you've sort of turned full circle and you're back at Echo Bistro as head chef. That period of time when you left, tell us a bit about that and what impact it had on you.
Yeah, well, I think it was a bit of a whirlwind. I did Noosa Food and Wine Festival for Tim Montgomery when he was at Barado's, and amazing experience, and met some amazing people. And at that stage, I'd left Gerard's, and I was actually working for Ben O'Donoghue at one of his restaurants, and you know, it was a breakfast restaurant, and you know, like I love working with Ben O'Donoghue. He was just such a great guy, and you know, had such a great operation for what was a breakfast lunch place, and then dinners were, you know, just amazing food that he just wanted to do, which was such a cool concept, which I thought was great. But yeah, did asked if I could just take 2 weeks without pay so I could help Tim at Noosa Food and Wine Festival, and yeah, I was kind of up there, and I was not sure if breakfast was kind of my thing and lunch like that, but just working with Ben O'Donoghue was just like, I thought was just a good experience and just such a good place to work. But yeah, it was just ironic that I was working up there and Tim had heard that Phil was looking for somebody, and that yeah, that, you know, I was just kind of in a bit of in a void. I don't know what I wanted to do, and Tim basically said to Phil, you should talk to Simon. And never been a head chef before, just a CDP kind of junior sous, but then was offered the head chef at Echo, and went there, and whirlwind of experience, you know, like managing a kitchen, never done it before, had people under me that were much older than me, and a team that was picked by Phil. But yeah, it was 3 years of just of learning, and then it came to a stage where, you know, I just had a kid, and we just thought, you know, an experience is not going to pass us by. And I went down to the Snowy Mountains to help rebuild a restaurant, and cooked Austrian food for some reason, but doing raclette and fondue and all sorts of things, but really built a base for myself, like in terms of, you know, some good paperwork and how to manage food costs, and, you know, how to manage a kitchen. But yeah, it was kind of almost cathartic. It was just, you know, in the mountains with my daughter and my wife, and we lived in the hotel. We were 30 seconds from work, and you go down the kitchen and, you know, do what you wanted to, and if you wanted to, and if not, you just kind of in the mountains. But yeah, it was just a weird experience, but it was something that I think was so good for me to do, because it just kind of allowed me to disconnect for a moment, because yeah, lots of things happened at Echo that I wasn't really ready for. You know, we got 2 hats in the first year and never had 2 hats before, and it just kind of exploded, and I don't think I was really ready for it. I just, you know, just kind of fell into it. So, but yeah, just kind of been away, and then came back from the snow and was back in Brisbane, and just didn't think I really fit anywhere in Brisbane at that stage. And then a job came up in Byron Bay at Beach, part of the Think Group, and yeah, I definitely dived at that. I thought it was a great opportunity and moved down there. And yet again, COVID, and but we didn't lock down, so we're just so busy. But amazing experience, and working with some absolute professionals was like a great experience. And it wasn't right for our family, just for Byron Bay at that stage. So yeah, we moved back to Brisbane and had a brief cameo at some places, but then Phil was looking for someone, and just I don't know what it is about Phil, but yeah, like if everyone always says if Phil calls, you always have to answer and talk to him. It's just a where they've come from and how he pivots and moves through like difficult times in the industry, I think is amazing. And I've always loved Phil just because he definitely gives you the adage to just go out and do it. He never tries to micromanage, so he always puts his trust in people, so which is great.
You mentioned that when you were head chef at Echo Bistro originally, it was 3 years of learning. Looking back at the way you operate now, how much have you changed as a head chef?
Well, I think when I first started, I definitely cooked food that I knew and was based on where I'd been, rather than what I actually wanted to do. But yeah, I think now I'm just, Phil kind of drums into you that you're in charge and you're there to organise. So organisation skills just come on board just from failing many times. But then you come through the end and your skill set's just way different. So I think me as a chef now, just so much more comfortable with my food because Phil's definitely had a big influence, and he's always about simplifying and just really working on what you're trying to achieve. So I don't think if I didn't have that, I think my food would be very different.
Tell us about the working relationship that you have with Phil. Is there a collaboration with the food? Is there a license for you to do whatever you want? Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, well, when I first moved to Echo, I think that it was a lot of Phil's influence, and we had a meeting for taking the job, and Phil basically just said, listen, we've done the same thing for 15 years and it's working, but I think it's time to really release someone that we think that can to change Echo and bring it into what's going on. And I was like, okay. And he's said, write me a menu and I'll see if I like it. And so I wrote him a menu, never seen the kitchen or working in it. And he just said, I think that's what we want. And then after that, you'd write menus, you'd get him to taste things, and he'd just be like, you just got complete freedom. He said, I just trust you. Like, you got a palate. You know how to season. You know how it needs to look. So just go for it. And I think that's what kind of brings you back when somebody puts so much trust in you to take the restaurant to somewhere that's going to improve it. Yeah, it's incredible.
What sort of impact did that license have on you and your belief in sort of your own food?
I think it was difficult because, it was, I had to draw on things that I'd done before to build something. But I think now these days, it's an amazing experience to just, have somebody that trusts you, and you can put on what is tasty. Like, some of the dishes aren't just one kind of cuisine. It's a multi-layered of flavors and textures that just what I think just works. And Phil's always interested in it, and he likes to taste it because it's just something that he would not think of. So I think that kind of spurs him on to keep going, like with Echo, because he just knows that there's just different things that he didn't know were around, flavors that he hadn't tasted before. But I think the alchemy of it just just really works. So yeah, it's incredible.
Is there a dish or two that you can tell us about that kind of exemplifies where you're at with your cooking?
Yeah, well, I think these days, since I've moved back, we've pulled away from what was before, and then just tried to go a little bit more. We had a customer in recently that kind of came up and gave us some good feedback, and he just said that he really liked the food because it just provoked some conversation about places they've been and things that they've done, and just picking up on flavors that he had tasted somewhere else, but it was with some other things in a dish. So like at the moment, we've kind of got we do like a set 5 course, but it kind of changes every 2 weeks. But at the moment, we've got like kind of a palate cleanser dish on. It's a yogurt sorbet with compressed green mango and just some beautiful strawberries, but just some different textures, like some jellies and gels and like just some compressed green mango, but with nasturtiums. I think it just it's just some broad fruits and flavors that just really work together, but somehow it's not one type of cuisine. So yeah, that's kind of one dish at the moment. I think exemplifies how food should be. It's just it's based on taste and profile, I think, more than what kind of cuisine you're trying to produce.
Echo Bistro's had such an incredible influence over a long period of time in Brisbane, but the evolution has been extraordinary in the last sort of decade. How mindful are you of the sort of impact that it's already made and moving forward with such an important restaurant for Brisbane? Yeah,
well, I think it's kind of insane to think that it's been going for so long, but it's just progressed through. But I think it's a really important restaurant for Brisbane because it just kind of just shows where Brisbane's at, and Phil's always just tried to match what's going on in Brisbane, and it's always a good indicator of is Brisbane doing well, because it needs to push forward, it needs to move with what some people are pulling out. So I think the restaurant itself is just like a massively important thing in Brisbane, because institute restaurants are around, but you see them more and more these days just falling by the wayside and not being on the radar, because it is just the institute restaurant, and it's the place that it was good at one time, but now it's it's kind of fallen by the wayside. But I feel like Echo's not one of those places. It's something that it's always progressed. We've talked about the importance of some of the mentors in your career, but now you're in a role like that and mentoring younger chefs. What's your approach to get the best out of your staff? Yeah, well, I think my approach has always been, I think I started out when, I was just qualified as, you could be a bit hot-headish and stuff like that, but people like Tim and with Alessandro at Urbane really taught you that you don't need to yell, you don't need to scream. I think you need to work with what you got, because you just need to pull people along on the journey that you're trying to convey, and I think they appreciate that. They respect someone that knows that it's difficult to sometimes translate what you've got in your head, because it's just something very foreign to them. But if you bring them along, they'll respect it for a lifetime. So I think, just the mentoring and just bringing people on the same journey that you did is really important, because I think some people, their adage to food is a lot different. So, I think just cultivating people is the key. You're doing some amazing things up there in Brisbane. What do you love about what you do? I think, I've gone away and done various things and different things, but I think always brings you back to the creation and the alchemy of food. I think is the big thing of just being able to produce something that you think that rocks somebody's world. yeah, because I think that's the most important thing when in cooking. Sometimes you forget about it. You've got to do the numbers and you've got to hit the targets and everything. But sometimes when it's all stripped away and it's just the creativity, I think, of putting things together, I think is super important, and it's good for your mind, I think, as well, because you're putting something that was in your head out there to the people, and and it's out of your head now. I think that's the important thing. Yeah.
Well, Simon, it's amazing to have you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear just a bit of your story. Good luck with what you're doing up there in Brisbane. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.